Yeah, as far as I know, Henry Downes came over as a merchant for Bristol, and he settled here and set up the business, but he never married. So he had a few sisters and things, so the business probably went down through the sisters, so that's how we think it got into our family. Now, we know John Henry Fanning, who would have been the local big solicitor, was actually owner of it around the time when Henry Downes died, so we don't know how it got to him, but it's interesting that from him then it worked its way down through the family, through the female line. So John Henry Fanning's daughter was called Elizabeth, and she married, they got a fellow over to run the business called Henry Oliver Broomhead, and he was from Suffolk, and he was completely useless and did no work whatsoever. But he but he married into the family anyway, so he was doing quite well out of it. So anyway, the reason I got to de Bromhead was that woman, Elizabeth, around 1916 realised that her name was very English, Broomhead. So she changed it to de Bromhead to make it sound more Norman or French, because there would have been a Norman and French connection here. So it was changed to de Bromhead. So any de Bromheads in the world have to be related to that woman because she started off the name. So that's interesting.
So it's quite unique name.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually a tree planted, when she was born, there was actually a tree planted in Viewmount. So they probably lived in Viewmount House maybe at that stage.
Okay, because was it your land where the hospital is now?
Yeah, Ardkeen. My father was born in Ardkeen Hospital when it was actually a house.
Wow.
So that was 1943, I think he was born. So yeah, then they sold it off to, the hospital bought it then, and then they moved out to Knockeen where Henry trains the horses now. Well, my granddad, all he wanted to do was train horses. Like, he wanted to farm and train horses. Horses was his passion. He was the master of the hounds for the Gaultier hounds. So, and then he always had a couple of, what they used to do is buy cheap horses and cheap fillies and try and train them on to win a race and then improve their value. And then my grandmother was great at wheeling and dealing horses. She was originally a Rowan from Middleton, so she used to wheel and deal. That was her. She loved wheeling and dealing. The business was changing from wholesaling, and Harry came back, and Harry was an interesting type jockey. He had his own style, but he wanted to try and keep fit, and he realised that squash was going to be a big, when he was over in England, he must have been over in England doing something, and he realised squash was going to be a big thing, and it was a good way for him to keep fit. So he said, if we have a squash club, people come in, have a drink. That was in the days when sports didn't necessarily mean you didn't have a drink when you're doing your sport. So you'd play your game of squash and have a couple of drinks and bring in people. So in the 70s and early 80s, squash was huge, so we could have 200 or 300 members. So it was great, and even if a percentage of them dropped in for a drink on their way, it was great. So it was a good start to the whole thing. It got things started. So the docks were in full flow at that stage when they took over, so there was a lot of hard men around. So we had a local character called Paddy Cullen who sat at the bar. He would have been the local regular, and if a fella came in that he knew was a complete dodge, he'd give Dad the nod, and Dad would say, "No, I can't serve you," because all the dockers were grand, most of them were grand, but there's one or two are just going to be too much trouble. They're just not worth it.
So Paddy was like an unofficial bouncer?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he sat at the counter. I can remember sitting there when I was a kid. He'd be there. Like, people just came in. That was their time. He probably came in at 4 or 5, and he'd go home for his dinner, and he might come out for another few pints afterwards. And his son actually still delivered to us up to a few years ago for Kylie's, so there was always a connection. Like.
And your dad probably gave him a few drinks or something?
Yeah. Well, knowing my dad, he wouldn't give him too many drinks. He'd give him the odd drink.
Unless a horse won.
Unless a horse won, and then it went complete, yeah. If a horse won, then all hell would break loose. Yeah, that was good, yeah. So that's what we could. Yeah, I have ledgers there from 1909 on. It's just, they're the ones that are only left that I could find. But all the places all around Ballyhale, within about a 30-mile radius, we would have delivered wholesale whiskies and sherries, ports, even Guinness, I'd imagine, to some of the bottled their own Guinness as well. So, and there would have been lots of places around Waterford did that.
And there's some fantastic photographs from the pool collection of the vans outside your premises. Yeah, there seems to be
more and more pool collection going up as they go through them. There's a lot of, we got a few of the photographs done up, just to have a few of them, but they are nice to see.
Oh,
yeah. It's amazing. We got one of the digital ones, and you could actually zoom in and see a person's face. They're so good. I can just about remember was washing bottles. I can remember the bottle washing plants going and filling, but barely remember that. That's probably 75. I think that was about 77 that all stopped, because Irish Distillers put a blanket ban on. They only kept everything in-house then. They wouldn't supply anyone, small suppliers anymore.
Okay. But you still do the blended whiskey?
Yeah, we still keep our own blend, try and keep the name going.
Okay.
And we'll go global one of these days, of course. I'd remember, we used to get the managers over from CIE. There wasn't a lot of work done by the management after 1 o'clock, I'd have to say. And I won't mention their names because probably some of them are still alive. but there was you just used to get your regular, it was different. What used to happen, people would come in after work, they'd have a couple of pints, and then they go home, and the dinner would be ready for them. The whole social structure of life was different. And now people would be appalled if you told them how people behaved. But it was just the way it was, and people, there was enough money in one wage to be able to own your house. So people looked after, the social structure was completely different in life.
So whenever the doctor is finished, they'd be in, and whenever...
At the bus station, yeah, bus station.
They'd be in, and so on.
And you'd have, Denny's was around the corner, and there was a cold storage place up in the corner as well, where there's a block of, I don't know what's there now, but there was a HB Ice Cream used to have a depot there, remember that? And then you'd Gardener's World had a place, and then the PMPA had a garage right opposite. It was much more thriving. It's completely, they let it, Waterford Corporation in their wisdom, let the place die a death really, in fairness. We're lucky we're still going at all. It's just because the novelty of where we are and the fact that we have a lot of history keeps us going. But they haven't done much. Hopefully the cultural quarter now will bring the area back up again, but they have let it die a death. Yeah, he had his own rules about how he did things. So. Well, it's hard to describe him. One day he could tell you you're barred, and the next day he'd forgotten that he barred you, and he'd say, how come I haven't seen you for so long? He said, well, you barred me. I said, well, I forgot. Or other times, if you're barred forever and a day now, you were barred forever and a day. You'd never get back in if you really annoyed him that much, but you'd have to be fairly bad to annoy him that much now. But he felt that as he was running the pub, if people should behave the way you expect to behave for yourself, but then again, he didn't always behave himself when he went out himself. So, no, generally, we like to keep it sort of a calm place. You don't want anyone going completely bananas. Everyone should respect each other, and that's how we try and run the place. And in general, that sort of works out well for us. People know that it's a safe environment. Even now, the way we've set it up, it's set up safely for people. So, yeah, I don't know. He had a strange way of looking at things, because then he could turn the other way another day. He often people come in and he go, what age are you? And they go, 18, and it'd show them ID, and he go, I've been serving you for a year. You can get out now, he said. So he was a man of contradictions. But everyone enjoyed him because he was a character. He always had a back problem, which is family. So he always had a crazy sort of, Pat Murphy, the famous artist, made him a leather belt, which I still have somewhere, I must look for it. And the leather belt used to hold him together, but he used to take it off and swing it at fellas. He wouldn't, just to give him the fear. And he was very calm up to a point, but he had a switch. And if you turn that switch, you wouldn't want to get in his way now, you keep out of his way. But I mean, I worked with him for the whole time, and I don't think we ever had a crossword between the two of us. And which is, considering we were always, we did annoy each other, obviously, some way or other, but we just never had a crossword with each other. It was just...
Where did your dad back? Where did he back the horses?
He used to do it with, what's the name of the fella? Savage is all I can think of his name is. I can't really think of his name, the son comes in it, but I can't remember the name of the father. So he had one time anyway. At one stage, there was a very high tax on betting. It was nearly 20%, I think. So there was a lot of private accounts with bookies. So Harry had two winners one time, and he put £100 each way on. He put £100 each and £100 each way double, which was a big bet at the time anyway. But the maximum you could win in a normal bookie shop was £2,000. So anyway, he'd won a little bit more than that, and he had to go and collect it in the Apple Market in a brown paper bag. So we had a good few nights out on that one, as far as I can remember. I don't think he was sober for a week now after that one, I'd have to say.
Henry Dan's family were a very successful family of merchants in Bristol, Waterford being a leading port in what was the British Empire, it was a place to open tea, wine and spirits store. And he came here in 1797 and started the company. Tea was a major part of business in those days, and very important. And the spirits would have been the third part. It was ports, sherries, etc. from the continent. It was very major. He was a bachelor, so the family name didn't continue. It came through my grandmother to ourselves. Over the years, we became the largest bonders in the southeast of Ireland, and we used to have 10 different blends of whiskey along the bar here. The Downs No. 9 became the most popular one because the parish priest, who knew more about drinking whiskey than anybody else, used to come in, and if the parish priest wanted it, it had to be the best, so everybody had to have the Downs No. 9. The others became sort of obsolete.
But the real secret is not upstairs in the pub. It's in the cellars beneath. That's where the alchemy of whiskey blending is carried out, away from prying eyes. I'll become an industrial spy.
The No. 9, we're trying to keep it going as a 200-year tradition. These things must never be let slip, I think. And we blend it in a small way just to keep the name going and to keep the quality of the name up to what it should be.